You recognize that tune, and you know it's time for Relics Radio. This is a family-friendly show, so the entire family can join us as we talk metal detecting and relic hunting. You can call into the show at 270-495-0315 or join in the chat and post any comments or questions you might have, and we'll get to as many of them as we can. You're listening to Relics Radio of Southern Kentucky and Middle Tennessee. And you are live on Relics Radio. Well, you're live if you're listening on January the 3rd, 2019, and we're coming to you from the Cumberland River Valley along the beautiful and scenic Cumberland River here in southern Kentucky and Middle Tennessee. I am your host, Digging with Seven.
And I'm your co-host, Tennessee Jeff.
Oh, man, Jeff, we got so much to talk about tonight, don't we?
We sure do. Well, we never run out of things to talk about. Can you believe it's already 2019?
No, I can't. I sure can't. I can't believe that that last year has gone by the way that it has. But I've really been excited about getting to this point. We got a great guest tonight, which we'll introduce him in a moment. But I've been waiting to get to this point in our show because we're going to announce some things today or tonight that we've kind of left in limbo just a little bit. We've got nailed down all of our sponsors for 2019, and we are fast on the way of nailing down all of the products that we're going to give away. And we're not going to tell you everything, but we are going to tell you that we're breaking things down into quarters. That will be a 3-month period. So the first quarter will be January, February, March. And somewhere in this quarter, what is Murray Branch Outdoors going to give away?
Buddy, it's going to be great. It's going to be a
drum roll.
Yeah, drum roll. It's going to be a high-end metal detector. It's going to be the Equinox 600.
It is. And I'm going to tell you, I don't care who you are. I mean, I remember last year at this time, the Equinox was still just a dream, I think. I don't know. It might have been out. But and thanks to Tim Henderson, we'll run his commercial later in the show, probably, I guess, in the second segment of this show here. And we started doing that. We break the show down into 4 segments and try to talk about different things, but and get your calls in as well. You know what? I was looking today, and I shared this with you and Mark Hoover, the half redneck. Shared this with you. Looking back over all of the podcasts that we've done, and what our top podcasts were. And the guy that we've got on tonight is still in the top 10 of all the podcasts that we've done. But our biggest show was, and I'm going to go ahead and give credit to Plugmaster Ford and Wes Stringer and Chris Heimsoff, because it was the Great Silver Horde. And there were almost, I think we like 8 more people, having 3,000 people that tuned in to that podcast. And
now, what about that? Well, that's a good show.
That is a good show. There's no doubt about it. And because we're on a small market here, there's no doubt about it. I mean, we don't have that great a following as far as as far as the world goes. But to pull in 3,000 people, I was just blown away by that. And like I say, the guest that we've got tonight is still in the top 10. Had over 600 people tuned in to listen to him. And like I say, we'll bring our guest in here in just a minute, but we've got some more good news too. Good news for you folks, not so much good news for me and Jeff, because as soon as we get done tonight, it's going to be a mad dash to break all of this stuff down. And what are we going to do, Jeff?
We're headed to Charleston, South Carolina on the Relic show for American Digger Magazine. They're going to do a live podcast there, and I'm looking forward to that. So, but like Seven said, he's got to tear down all that expensive equipment he's got in his Relic room, and we're going to head out that way in the morning about 8 o'clock, right?
Yeah, we're going to leave here about 8 o'clock. We're going to try to. And for those of you that don't know, that is the American Digger South Carolina Low Country Civil War and Artifact Show. And it will be Saturday and Sunday, January 5th and 6th. It's at the Omar Shrine Temple, and that's at 176 Patriot Road in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, just across the bay there, or across the bridge from Charleston. So if you're in that area, be sure that you come over there and you look us up and let us shake your hand and meet you in person. I want to meet everybody that I can this time, don't you?
I sure do. We didn't have that opportunity last time in Chattanooga. Of course, I was running around Chattanooga like a chicken with my head cut off trying to find some technical cables that we kind of left at the house. But anyway, yeah, I would really like to shake everybody's hand this time and get to see a lot more of the show.
I've got that cable around my neck. I'm wearing it as a necklace. And so
you better, because I'm going to hang you with it if you forget it this time.
No, we didn't. I never did take that out of the road box whenever I came in. So it's in there, no doubt. And we'll probably forget something, but it's not going to be that cord. I'm not going to run you all over Charleston trying to find a cord.
Yeah,
but anyway,
and we can't forget somebody else is going to be there too.
That's right.
Who's half redneck? Mark Hoover's going to be there.
Oh, half redneck. Yep. And he'll never be the same after he meets us in person. I mean, it's one thing to talk to us every day, but it's something else when you meet us in the flesh.
That's right, and then I hope we're the same after we meet him. So, but you never know how it's going to go.
No, I'd say Bill Marsh could tell us something on that, but he's probably going to hold his peace. I don't know. Chat's filling up tonight. We've got a lot of folks in there, don't we, Jeff?
It is. We see Plugmaster Ford in there. Seen Missouri Mike in there. Got Dennis, Chris. Got Ken, Bill. Matt Perdue's in the house. Ron Reed. Seen Tim in there. Tim Henderson. Dennis. We move on down a little bit. Ohio Relic Hunter. Anita Jackson. GMDC is in the house. Going down. There's so many of them, it's just hard to keep over. It's just moving and moving. So
yeah, that's Greg. Appreciate having you on tonight, Greg. And by the way, I didn't say anything there a while ago, but on all of these contests in 2019, all of these giveaways, we're going to do every one of them live on the show. You've got to be listening to the show. You don't necessarily have to be in the chat, I don't guess. It'd be a good thing if you were. We want you to be a follower of Relics Radio. But we'll announce everything on the Relics Radio Facebook group page, and we'll draw. But we're going to give all of those prizes, including the Mind Lab Equinox. And I'm going to tell you something. That's just the start of it. We've got some better stuff than that to give away later in the year, especially in the second segment. And we've just worked our second quarter, and we've only worked on the first 2 quarters so far. So they ain't no telling. We'd love to give away a brand new GMC truck or something. You can't never tell
with
about
a bass
us.
boat. You never know.
Oh, and I know a fellow that could probably use that bass boat, and that is our guest tonight. And who is it, Jeff?
It is BirdDogg. I was getting tickled. I was thinking you was going to say yourself could use that bass boat.
No, I don't. I don't need it. How's it going tonight, Chris?
It's going good. I think we could all use a bass boat.
Yeah, I'm sure we could.
Yeah.
Any of us could do with that. Y'all giving away all kinds of stuff. Just don't give away the farm.
I know it. Well, We done
too late.
Yeah, we done got out of the farm.
Too late.
Yeah, the government bought my farming out, so when they bought the tobacco business out, so I'm done with the
My God.
Hey guys, it's a little bit off the subject, but something that I wanted to put out there. We had a young 20-year-old girl here in the county, New Year's Eve that night, and as if any of you've seen the video that I shot going into 5 Mile Hollow or going down to the cabin, the creek that you have to drive through, I mean, it was treacherous. And probably shouldn't have drove through that, but we had to get together down there. But anyway, there was a young girl in our county that started to drive across a bridge. It swept her car and everything off of the bridge. They found her car about 500 yards from the bridge, and that was on New Year's Eve, and they still haven't found her. And all of the emergency and rescue people, and we've got people that have come from even other states that are trying to help and look for her. So our thoughts and prayers are with that family tonight.
They sure are. That is terrible. That is really terrible.
Yeah, that is terrible stuff.
And
well, the water's been up everywhere. It seems like we've been getting a lot of rain down here in Tennessee as well. And I think they were calling for flash flooding in the area here yesterday. I went out metal detecting down in Atlanta yesterday with my buddy Corey, and boy, we about got rained out. We were hunting in the bamboo thicket on the side of a hill, and we were soaking wet and slipping and sliding everywhere. It's really wet out there. The water table's been high for sure.
It's been high here for ever since fall started, I guess. It started raining, and our ground is just absolutely saturated. And then the other night we had a monster rain in just about an hour and a half, and that was what caused all of our problems. Of course, eventually it's going to be good for relic hunting because it gets the ground and everything in real good condition.
Yeah, I know. I went out to the construction site this past Sunday, and then of course it was just a big mud pit. And I mean, it was. I did look up and find some relics, but I mean, it was really too muddy to get in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey.
Well, we ain't had much of a winter, that's for sure.
No.
Down here in the south, at least, we haven't.
No, this all could be snow, and ice, and so
it could be.
We've kind of lucked out. I did look at the pull up the weather for South Carolina on my phone. And they've got flood watches and everything for there, and it's supposed to be raining tomorrow. So I don't know. Going over the mountains there, we might get into a little bit of rough weather going over. But it's supposed to be in the 50s and 60s, I think, there in Charleston. It's not going to be. I know last year at the Relic Show there, they had a monster snowstorm that came through, snow and ice, and we're not going to deal with that. This weekend over
there. It was 70 degrees here 2 days ago, and yesterday I was in Atlanta, at least, metal detecting. We were standing in the pouring rain, but I was burning to death. It's been really unseasonably warm down here in the south. So
it really has.
I kind of wish it would get a little cooler. If we got to hunt on land, I'd like it to be a little cooler for my taste, but it's just me, I guess.
Mark Hoover said it was 80 degrees down there in Orlando. So.
Yeah, I don't want no 80 degrees. And I remember one time, Chris, me and you and your dad was hunting. We were hunting up in northern Kentucky, and you had a target, and I came out across the field to film that, and it was spitting ice and snow that day. But that was a comfortable hunt to me.
Oh, yeah. And that if I got to hunt on land, I would almost just as soon it be in the 30s. Personally, it's too hot for me in the summertime and stuff on land to be digging too many holes anymore, unless I'm gardening for Cassie Lee here at the house.
Hey, for those of you that don't know BirdDogg, give us a little bit of your background, how you got started and what have you in metal detecting.
Well, my dad metal detected most of my younger life when I was a young kid. And I grew up in Colonial, Virginia, in the Yorktown, Gloucester area of Virginia. There was a whole lot of history there. The British surrendered to George Washington there in Yorktown, and there's a lot of Civil War history in the area as well. And so growing up as a child, I kind of always had a exposure to history, and then, of course, my father had been metal detecting, so I saw him bringing home all these items. But it never really captivated me until I was a little older, and my dad and I, like a lot of teenage boys, you grow kind of away from your dad, you butt heads a little bit, and we butted heads, and then he sent me one year a metal detector for my birthday, and it sat there in the corner for 6 or 7 months, and finally one day I thought, well, I'm going to go try that, and a buddy of mine had kind of convinced me to go with him, and I went out and the very first day found a Masonic button, a very early Masonic button, and was just hooked. I called my dad that night to ask him what it was, and I sent him some pictures, and like I said, my dad and I had been kind of distant and had butted heads a lot. And ever since that day that I called him about that button, we've spoken nearly every single day since. So it really, not only did I get into metal detecting, but it also brought my dad and I kind of back together, which I'm really glad it did. And so for the last 20 years or so, we've been able to share these experiences together. And even when we're apart, he lives in Kentucky, kind of a lot closer to you there, Steven.
Yeah.
But so even though we're geographically spread apart, we have this common interest. And every day when I'm out metal detecting, Dad wants to see pictures, and then vice versa. He'll go out when he's not working and send me pictures from stuff he's finding there in Kentucky. So it's kind of been the thread that drew us back together. And just anybody who metal detects knows that it's almost like an addiction. You start to find these things. It's like a never-ending treasure hunt. You find one thing, and there's more out there, so you just keep chasing the next thing.
That's right. I mean, I wish my father and I I wish we had had the opportunity to get out metal detecting. Of course, my dad, he's disabled and disabled vet and can barely walk across the living room, and he's always interested in what I find. And I mean, I just think every day I wish I would have had that opportunity.
And that's something people remind me every time I put a video up with my dad. I'm reminded of that because there's so many people who watch my videos and express that they wish they had that time with their dad. And so that's something that really means a lot to me. And he and I get out, and it's funny because we kind of have a little rivalry, metal detecting. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter if we find anything at all. Just getting to share that experience together is kind of the heart of it all. And we've certainly had so many great experiences all over the country together, and triumphs and falls and everything in between. So I really appreciate getting to spend that time with my dad in that way. Sure. And
I've had the pleasure of hunting with both of you together and separate too. And,
yeah.
You'll not hunt with two greater guys than BirdDogg and his dad. And he's an accomplished hunter. And, trying to find everything, but he's just delighted when you find something. I mean, there's not an ounce of jealousy there at all.
No, he's such a giving guy in not only his knowledge, but in his relics. I've seen him give away so many relics to people, and I've tried to carry that on. A lot of times I go out with friends and they have a rough day of it, and I just try and give them everything I found. Like, take it. I've got enough junk here at the house to drive my old lady crazy for the rest of her life. So it's really, at the end of the day, it's not the things at the end of the day. You know, it really isn't. And it's just kind of the experiences that we're gathering together. And in my case, that's what got me into video and metal detecting, was trying to kind of document those experiences and be able to share them, not only for my dad and my friends, but for me to be able to look back in the future and see my dad maybe one day when he is gone, and that time we spent together. And then beyond that, for my daughter to be able to see me when I'm gone, because I certainly wish that I could watch my grandparents on video and hear them speak and see what they were doing in their lives, and be able to share that part of our lives and see where my DNA came from. You know, what makes me tick? Where did that come from? So it's neat to be able to document that as well through my adventures out metal detecting and whatever I happen to be getting into, you know.
Yep. Hey, guys, we're coming up on a hard break. We need to run a commercial. Our phone lines are going to be open. It is 270-495-0315, and we're going to talk about Civil War relic hunting when we come back.
Hey, Seven, we's looking good in our new Relics Radio T-shirts.
Yeah, Ken and Mark Guthrie of detectors.com done brung them to us.
Yep. And they makes other shirts, too.
Yeah, boy. Detectors.com can handle tees for your club, hunt, or any other promotion folks may have.
They even got the Wide Pride shirts.
Yeah, them boys does the manatee crawl.
Yeah, scooting on their bellies.
That's what I said. The manatee crawl.
Looks like slugs eating jelly.
So whether you hunt horizontal or vertical, tell the folks where they need to go, TJ.
www.detectors.com.
I don't care how many times I play that commercial, I still love it. And credit goes where credit is due. That is Plugmaster Ford, the voice of Slugs Eating Jelly with detectors.com. And by the way, guys, we will give away a Detectors t-shirt tonight if we have a brand new caller, somebody that calls in that never has called in. Call in and talk to BirdDogg tonight, 270-495-0315. Talk to us about Civil War relics, BirdDogg.
Well, you know, that's pretty much what I'm always hunting for, and I think everybody kind of comes to metal detecting from a different path. We've all kind of found it through different routes. You know, as I said, I came to it through my dad, who was hunting for Revolutionary War and Civil War relics, and so that was my natural inclination when I started relic hunting. And so that's pretty much all I'm ever looking for. And I know a lot of people like to hunt coins and jewelry and things like that, and I do enjoy when I find something like that, but it's not what really piques my interest. I think I'd probably rather find a mini ball than a diamond ring. So for me, that's what I'm chasing down, and I think you guys spend a lot of time chasing Civil War relics as well and old colonial relics. It's just something about being the first person to touch that relic in 150 or more years. And then beyond that, knowing the levity of that relic. You know, there's a place in Kentucky where, you know, at Perryville where we used to hunt, and now it's part of the park. It was sold to be part of the park. But that field, you know, thousands of men died there. And when you find something in an area like that, there's a lot of levity to a relic like that. It's something beyond the relic itself. So I think that's why I chase Civil War relics, and You know, as I said, everybody has come to metal detecting for different reasons and has their own reasons why they enjoy doing it. Some people enjoy the community aspect of it. Some people just like finding the find. And, you know, for me, a lot of it is the relics and finding those relics and the levity of those relics. And then a lot of it is an escape for me. Probably more than anything, metal detecting is an escape for me. I put on the headphones, the rest of the world disappears for 8 to 10 hours while I wander around. You know, it's like the mute button for the rest of the world, I think, for me. So, but I happen to be chasing Civil War relics while I'm muting the rest of the world out. So I get the double bonus out of that.
Yeah, that sounds good. What is some of your best Civil War finds? I know you have so many Civil War relics. I mean, but I'm sure you have some that's your favorite.
Well, my absolute favorite find is a martingale plate that I found there in Perryville, and in the field I'm talking about, where so many men had lost their lives and a lot of horses. It was documented that a lot of horses had been shot down in that battle as well. And I found a martingale plate there, which is a brass heart-shaped plate that went on the chest of a horse. And it still had the leather. There's a leather heart still attached to the back of it. And it was preserved perfectly because it was in a muddy ditch in the center of this field that had probably been muddy since the day it was dropped. And that one's pretty high on my list, not only because of where I found it. It was in Kentucky, which is where my family's from, and but also because I was with my dad that day, and we both we're just kind of blown away by that find. It was a field that we had hunted so many times, and somehow that ditch had never been cut off. And we went in one day and the ditch had been cut off smooth, and I went straight into the muddy ditch. You know, that was my first inclination, was like, I'm getting in that muddy ditch. And I was looking for artillery, but ended up with that. And it kind of ended our day because the leather on the back, we wanted to get it into water immediately so that it wouldn't begin to degrade. So we pretty much left and went and got a big Ziploc baggie to fill with water and put it in. But that's one that's really high on my list for Civil War finds.
And I know
found a lot of
I know exactly
shells.
where that thing was found at, because you showed me the exact spot where that was found. It's an amazing find. There's no doubt about it. And we've got a caller that has come on the line, Ron Reed. Okay. What's going on, Ron?
Hey guys, just thought I'd call in. You all doing all right?
Yeah, doing
just
great.
Fine.
We got
Happy New Year, Ron.
We got your buddy BirdDogg on.
Yeah, I've got to hunt with Chris a few times, man. He is awesome to hunt with. He's a great guy.
Good to hear from you, Ron.
Good to hear from you too. We seen you down at the Chattanooga show. I think was the last time we seen you. But I just wanted to ask real quick, what got you into water hunting? Because I know you love to water hunt. What really got you, since you've been hunting for like 20 years, got you into the water hunting?
Well, you know, YouTube. You know, it was kind of like an instant revelation that there was an area that a lot of people weren't willing to go. And, you know, having hunted so many battlefield areas and campsite areas, and I think anybody who researches and hunts for Civil War relics knows how intense the struggle is. And people watch us on YouTube and they see the best of the day. They see you finding things. And we were talking a little earlier, a lot of YouTube videos are just a hand in a hole video, where all you see is someone's hand in a hole finding a relic. And you don't really see the full story of the day, what it took to get there, how many hours you researched, how many miles you walked. And so I had struggled like everybody else on the land trying to get those spots and struggling for my few Civil War relics. And scrolling through YouTube videos and seeing people metal detecting in the water, it dawned on me that this is an area that, like I said, not many people are willing to go, or not many people have the resources and the bravery, for lack of a better word, to go out and try, because it is a daunting task. And for anybody who's tried it, you know, your first couple of hunts, you're very timid. You're kind of nervous about what's in the water and where you're going to step and, you know, what could go wrong. And so it was kind of an unexplored frontier for me compared to land hunting. And plus, it gets hot down here in the South in the summer, man. It's you dig enough holes in a dry, bone-dry field, and you realize there's got to be a better way.
That's for sure.
No doubt about that.
Yeah.
Hey,
I hope I get to see you fellas before long, Ron and Tim, both. I hope I get to see you boys. We need to go out and do some digging for sure.
Yes, sir. We'll make sure we contact you, man.
Yeah, you boys come on down.
Hey,
have a good one.
Hey, thanks for the call, Ron. We've got another caller on. The last four digits are 6346. Who we got?
Yeah, you got Greg in Gainesville, Florida here.
Hey, Greg. What's going on tonight?
Hey, Greg.
Not much. BirdDogg, I'm a subscriber to your channel. Love your videos.
Oh, thank you.
I was trying to think of what I could ask you, I guess, but you know, it's the first time to the show. I actually had a night off, and I know Mark Hoover is a friend of mine, and he's been plugging the show quite a bit, and I was actually glad for once that I'd be able to catch it, you know. And we had a really bad wreck down here on the interstate, so we were stuck in traffic for about 45 minutes, and I was able to get home in time. So,
I'm glad you got the call, Greg.
Oh yes, for sure. I was almost. I don't really. I mean, I like to call, but sometimes I can get long-winded. You know, when it comes to talking history, sometimes, and through one of my jobs, you know, I run into a lot of people, and that's how I get a lot of my properties. You know, because down here where I'm in Florida, you know, we don't have the Civil War. We had the Battle of Gainesville, which wasn't very big, and then obviously Lusty north of here, which is about an hour north of here, was the largest battle in Florida. Actually, probably one of the only few in Florida. But my question was, if you could go back in time, BirdDogg, and there was one, I know Civil War related, if there was one person that you would be able to sit down and talk to for 15 minutes, who would it be?
Hey, great question.
That is a really good question. I think if I had my choice of anyone, maybe Edward Porter Alexander would be a good one. He was an artillery commander for the Confederate Army, and I think that would probably be a really good sit-down chat for me if I could sit down with him and my Google Earth app, look at Google Earth with him. I think him and I could have a great conversation.
What'd be the first question that you'd asked him?
I would be asking him probably about all of their adventures here in the Chattanooga area, and specifically where a couple artillery positions I've been looking for were around Chattanooga. So, and I think he could put his finger on the spot if I pulled up Google Earth or something like that. So, that'd be a cool conversation.
I'm sure it would be. It would be a great conversation, and I would love to be in that conversation.
There's not any of us that wouldn't want to go back and even talk to just a private or something and say, where were you guys at? We've walked everywhere and can't find it.
Yeah.
Well, I've read his diary several times, and there's a couple gaps in it, so I'd like him to fill those in, you know.
Hey, Greg.
And you know, when you go reading diaries, it seems like when it gets to the good stuff, it's always a gap there. So I don't know.
Just the call drops out right before they get to the part you want to hear.
Yeah,
it never ends.
Yeah, somebody didn't want that in the diary, so they took it out.
Hey, Greg, did you have
part
another?
Of the allure, though.
Yeah, it is. Do you have another question for BirdDogg?
I'm trying to. Just before I decided to call, I know he was talking about some of his greatest finds. So I know he was talking about the plate on the horse. I mean, that's a very unique find I never knew existed. So I mean, it probably would be. I know where you're from and where you detected. Obviously, that's Civil War aplenty. So I mean, I don't know if you had a favorite find, but obviously it was probably that horse plate, I guess.
Yeah, and a lot of my artillery shells. I mean, that's what I'm chasing most days now. At least in the summer, when I'm out in the water. That's what I'm chasing is artillery. And a lot of my shells, I think those are some of my favorites. Actually, one of my new favorite relics is one I just found this last summer out water hunting, and that was a section of Sherman necktie, they call it. And it's a bent section of railroad tie. And what they would do is they'd rip up the wooden slats underneath of the railroad, and they'd pile them up, and then they'd lay the railroad bars over it and start it on fire. And it was a method to sabotage the railroad line to keep the other troops from being able to move up and down the railroad line. So they destroy these railroad bars that way. And it's a pretty iconic piece of Civil War history. You read a lot about Sherman neckties. But it's a big relic to find. Most people aren't looking for a piece of iron that's 20 feet long by, those are the type of signals most people avoid. But I was lucky enough to find a section of it. I found a section the year before last that was 20 feet long. And I tried to get it out, and it about sunk my boat, and I ended up losing it in the middle of the river. And then this year I found a piece that was like 6 feet long, but it has a perfect bend in it. And it's very obviously a Sherman necktie, and I was able to get it out. And that's one of my new favorite Civil War relics, just because it's such an iconic piece, and it's such a tangible piece. It's so large, and I think that's probably why I like shells so much. There's no denying a relic like that. You can see it from across the room, and even people who don't know what Civil War relics are like, oh, if you pull out a cannonball, they pretty much know what you've got there. And
very cool. Well, I appreciate you answering the questions, and I'll get back into the chat here. Let somebody else give a call.
Well, I appreciate you, Greg. Thanks for subscribing and thanks for calling in.
Hey, Greg.
Yeah, I know. This year I'm coming on strong. So there'll be more videos this year, I promise.
Cool.
Hey, Greg, call Greg, and right now you're in the number one slot for the free T-shirt. Appreciate the call.
All right, cool. Thank you.
BirdDogg, how do you display a 6 foot piece of railroad tie? A railroad
track.
Laid
it in the floor.
Laid it in the
Hey, floor.
That's the way to do it, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think I have a shelf that could hold it. So
I'm sitting here thinking, what my wife?
Stout relic.
I'm sitting here thinking, what would my wife say if she come in and I had a piece of railroad track laying in the middle of the floor?
Well, it took a lot of preserving to get it to a state where I could bring it in, for sure.
Oh yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean,
but it's pretty stable now and able to just lay in the floor without destroying the carpet. He definitely would have killed me if I'd have brought it in straight out of the river into the house. So.
I'd say so. And that is, that's right. That is a unique relic because that was the lifeline between troops. To be able to use the rail system. And I know John Hunt Morgan came up through our area here, and he did that quite a bit. I mean, he would just destroy sections of the railroad. So,
yeah. Well, and it's a relic that I guarantee you, if you go around the country looking at collections, you aren't going to see many of those. There's some out there, don't get me wrong, but there's not many people in the country with one of those in their collection. So it's definitely pretty high on my favorites list.
So did you just run up on this next to a railroad track, or did you do some research about a derailment, or how did you go about?
No, I had been researching for artillery, and by default, you read a lot of stuff that doesn't have to do with what you're researching. And an area that I was researching that had been shelled, I knew it had been shelled pretty extensively, had also had the entire section of railroad torn up. And really, you know, as Sherman marched down to Atlanta and eventually on to the sea, he came down through Tennessee and into Georgia, and essentially the entire length of railroad was at some point incapacitated. They made a general practice of trying to disrupt the railroad. So there was instances where he ordered troops to tear up the entire length of railroad for 5-6 miles. So there's a lot more of it in the South than you would think, but like I said, it's a signal that you wouldn't chase really on land. You know, if you heard something that sounded like that, you'd run the other direction probably on land. And now luckily where I found it, like I said, I knew in the back of my mind that could be a target that was there from reading the reports. But also, I was doubly lucky in that the section of creek that I was in was only about 2 feet deep, and I saw it. So it was pretty obvious what it was. It was just a big bent rail kind of sticking up out of the water. I was like, oh, my goodness, there it is.
Man.
So it was just, the luck of the draw. I think if you walk enough miles, eventually you'll stumble onto something, I reckon.
Blind squirrel finds an acorn every now and then, don't they?
Every once in a while.
Every once in a while. Hey, guys, we got another commercial break, and we'll be right back. But the phone lines are open, 270-495-0315. Call in and talk to BirdDogg. And if you're a new caller, you're in the running for a Detectors Relics Radio T-shirt. If your passion is metal detecting, then you know how much your success is based on the equipment you use. Let my buddy Tim Henderson of Murray Branch Outdoors in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, help you with that. Tim is an authorized dealer of Garrett, XP Deus, and Macro detectors and supplies, and he is now an authorized dealer for MineLab. So if you're looking to get your hands on one of the new Equinox 600 or 800, then Tim's your guy. Murray Branch Outdoors is not only competitive in their prices, but the service after the sale is second to none. Tim not only sells detectors, he uses them, and so he can answer any question that you might have. Murray Branch Outdoors also deals in used detectors, and he'll take your old detector in on trade when you decide to upgrade. So give Tim Henderson of Murray Branch Outdoors a call at 615-948-4611, and be sure and tell him that Relics Radio sent you. And I would say that somebody listening to the show tonight, you just go to bed tonight and you just dream about it, because Murray Branch Outdoors in this first quarter may be fixing to gift you with a MineLab Equinox metal detector. Now, you'll be sweet dreaming on that right there.
Yeah, boy. I can tell you now, Tim's one of the best guys you'll ever meet out there, and I fully endorse that commercial.
Oh, thank you.
But he is he's a great guy, And I'm really glad to see him on board with you guys out there. I really enjoy getting out with Tim. So
yeah,
we're glad he's with us.
Call him and get you a metal detector.
He is a really great guy. I mean, I'm glad he's aboard with us too. So
yeah, we love hunting with him too. And by the way, Tim sent me a picture today. I guess it was yesterday or today. I lose track of time. Yesterday. Yeah. But he found, was it him that found the half dime? No, that was Wes Stringer today that found the half dime. Yeah. He found a trime. He found a trime. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
he found the trime yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday. And Wes Stringer this morning, I guess it was, or this afternoon, found a half dime with Plugmaster Ford. So congratulations to both of those guys.
Yeah, that's pretty good finds. So
I was with Tim one time, and he dug up a butt plate from a rifle, and he was sitting there, and I said, "You find anything?" And he pulled the butt plate out of his bag. He said, "Just this. I don't know what it is." And then he held it up. He said, "It looks like a garden trowel or something." I said, "That's a butt plate." He was holding it the wrong way, and so it looked wrong to him. And I was like, no. I was like, that's a butt plate. He's probably mad at me for telling that story on him. But I told some good on him first, so he can't be too mad.
Yeah.
But Tim,
we've all done that in the field. You look at something and you just you think, that's just absolutely nothing. The only trime that I've found wasn't 1.5 inches deep, and I thought it was one of those little knockout things on a kid's drink, and I was aggravated. I said, another one of them dadgum aluminum things, And then I kind of moved the dirt off of it, and I see, I think mine's a 1853. I thought, whoa, wait a minute. And then I was pleasantly surprised. Hey, Jeff.
It's always a pleasant surprise once you find it's a silver coin instead of a piece of a pop tap or something. Top.
Oh, man, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah, but we've got some questions on the show prep this time for you, BirdDogg. The first one's from Dennis. Where would you most like to go metal detecting?
I would probably most like to go metal detecting down in Port Hudson, down in Louisiana. They threw a lot of iron around out there. Or maybe like Fort Fisher out in North Carolina. Any place where they threw a whole lot of iron would be, where I'd want to go, the places where the most artillery was being fired. But aside from that, my kind of every year dream locations that I try and hit every year, I try and hit Yorktown area where I grew up, because there's a lot of colonial stuff there, and it's a very nostalgic feeling detecting around that area, just because I grew up there. And every year I try and go to the button mine with my dad, which is always a big time, going up there and seeing all of the buttons there. There's millions of buttons there, just piles and piles of buttons. And so that's always like a dream hunt. Every time I go there, it's kind of like being in a dream state. You almost don't know what to do. You kind of just standing there dumbfounded a lot of the time, looking around at all the stuff laying there. And your eyes can't even hardly take it in.
Yeah. And Greg had another question that he put in on the chat. And that was, if you could go to a Civil War battle site, which one would it be? Of course, they're all off limits now, but, if you could go.
Yeah. Again, probably Port Hudson or Fort Fisher, someplace like that I think there would be some iron still in the ground to get out. I've been lucky enough, I grew up in a military family. My dad was in the Coast Guard, and I was in the Coast Guard, but I've been able to travel and visit most of the Civil War battlefields, at least the major ones. And so I've gotten to see a lot of them. I'd love to hunt any of them, though, really. If you could put me in the middle of any single one of them, I would love to, but of course we can't.
Yeah, that would be nice.
I'd love to go to Gettysburg. That's my
Gettysburg would be great.
Yeah, I would love to go to Gettysburg. Just because it's so well known, I guess probably more soldiers died in a short period of time there than anywhere else, which is kind of gruesome, but it has such a history there, that to hold that in your hand.
It's a lot of levity.
Yeah, it is.
Right.
Quite a bit.
We had another question in the chat from Ed. What's the highest thing on your bucket list this year?
This year is gonna be a rifle again from the water. Last year I wanted to get one out of the water last year, and of course Dad came along and found two. He's hunted in the water 2 times in the last 2 years, and both times he found a rifle. So he's a lucky feller for sure. But
you ain't taking him no more.
Yeah, I'm talking delicately when I talk about this, because there was a lot of banter on the creek when he found those days, because he knew that's what I was looking for, and he was like, "You want me to throw it back and let you find it?" But it's okay. I know I'll get it one day. Of course, he'll probably outlive me, knowing him, so he'll probably get all my relics. He's stubborn like that.
It sounds like Seven in that box plate. We swapped sides on the dirt mound, and then all of a sudden, my first swing, I went over a box plate, and then we just swapped sides.
Yeah. He wants to give me my side back.
Yeah. It's too late.
It was too late.
Yeah, it's too late to get my side back then. Yeah, no good deed goes unpunished, though, I'll tell you.
Yeah, that's right. Well, every dog has his day in the sun, as they say. So I'm always glad to see Dad find stuff, and especially because he's getting older. All of us are getting older, and you have to kind of appreciate all the time you can get out and enjoy your time outdoors and your time together, for sure. And I think a lot of people who are relic hunters, it's been a dying breed, and luckily there's some new life being bred into it. And some of the younger kids coming along, Britton, Lockhart, and Riley, and a whole new younger generation coming along behind and kind of picking up the torch for relic hunting. And I'm glad to see that. And I've been spending a lot of time with the metal detecting club here in Ringgold, the Dixie Relic Recovery Club, and I notice when I go to those meetings, the little dirt digger comes, Emily. If you guys have seen her YouTube channel, she's the cutest little metal detectorist you'll ever see in your whole life. She comes up to about your waist, and has probably dug more Civil War stuff than most veteran relic hunters. But she's cute as a button. And I'm glad to see the younger generation coming along, but I'm noticing that a lot of the generation there at those meetings is older. And so I've been thinking about that a lot lately, the preservation of relics and documentation of relics as well. How important that is as we all kind of move on through our lives. And as relic hunters and metal detectorists in general, how important it is that we document and preserve our finds for those who are going to inherit these finds after us. Because to a lot of people, all of these things are junk.
Yeah.
And, you have to know what you're looking at to appreciate it, kind of thing. So,
yeah. We've got 2 calls on. The first one on was Tim Henderson, and Barb is also on as well, but we'll let you go first, Tim.
Hey, guys. Can you hear me?
Hey, Tim.
Oh, yeah, we hear you.
How's it going, Tim?
Hey.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hey, thanks for the kind words, y'all. I appreciate that.
Yeah. You calling to exact your revenge on me for telling that story on you?
No, I still laugh about that when I find something to this day that I don't know what it is. It's a garden trowel.
Garden trowel. That's what it is.
Yeah. Check out this garden trial. I thought that was pretty funny. You know, that's how you learn, man. Heck, there's so much out there I don't know. To be honest with you, when I popped out this trine New Year's Day, I was excited because I thought it was a half dime, and that finally put me into the small silver coin club, I guess you'd say, because I guess the Mercury dime's probably the smallest silver. And I've watched Ron dig three or four half dimes, I guess, out detecting when we're out detecting together. So I was just excited, and when we first wiped it off and saw it, I didn't know what it was. I'm like, what is this? But yeah, it's awesome.
Well, that's part of the thrill is the discovery, and not only pulling it out of the ground, but discovering what you have. And a lot of times that'll roll over till you get home, and you end up having to call your friends and send pictures out and see if you can figure out what it is. And just a big, never-ending mystery.
I love the history and doing the research of something you don't know or something you're trying to find, and you're just lucky, I guess. That piece of rail you found was just the right size. You were able to get it out of there.
It was absolutely perfect. I mean, I couldn't have asked for a more perfect piece of it. Although I'm going to go back and look for more, but I couldn't ask for a better piece of it. And it's such a stunning kind of front piece to the collection, because it's the first thing you see when you're looking at it all, the collection here. So
that'd be pretty cool, wired up over a mantle or something with some other artifacts down below it or something.
You'd have to have some stout wire, buddy.
I was thinking chains.
Yeah. No, you have to do it upright.
Chain might do that. And I
pull my wall down.
I actually know exactly where there's two other pieces, but they're both 20-foot long pieces, and they're bent, so they're very unwieldy. You get a hold of it, and one end flips down and one end flips up, and it'll about kill you, especially by yourself. Maybe me and you and Ron need to go out there and salvage them bad boys.
Can we get it to the bank?
Hold on a minute. Whose show are you on?
It may take 5 of us. I don't know. Yeah, they're big rails, man.
I see an adventure.
But, well, it's always an adventure.
We'll get 6 rednecks and some rafts.
There you go. That's what we need.
Hold this and watch this.
Yeah. Hey, Tim, thanks for the call, and we appreciate everything that you do for us. We need to get over to Barb. We're almost up to the top of the hour in the next segment. What's going on tonight, Barb?
My dog has a question. She's never called them before.
Oh, what's that?
I knew you was going to do that.
What size shirt does she wear?
Yeah.
No, I do have a question. Y'all know, well, maybe not BirdDogg, but everyone else knows I hunt the old lumber company. And the guys across the street, it used to be on both sides of the highway, dug up an axle from one of those railroad hand cars. Now we're talking like 1920, 30. And so it's sitting on my porch. What's the best thing that I can do to preserve it?
Well, that's a good question. So it's a really large item then, or is it a manageable sized item?
3 to 4 feet long, and of course it's got the round metal wheels.
So it's huge. So electrolysis could be difficult on an item like that, and unless you have a huge tank, which I suspect you don't, to do such a thing. And what I would recommend on an item like that is something similar to what I did to my piece of Sherman necktie. It was really too large for me to fit into electrolysis. So I pressure washed it first and tried to wash off as much of the loose rust and gunk that I could. And then I put a Lysol solution on it to kill anything that could be alive on it, any kind of bacteria or growth that might have been on it from the creek. Now, if yours is dug up from land, you probably aren't going to encounter that kind of issue. So the pressure washing itself might do. And then you're going to want to dry it as best as you can, whether that means setting fans on it in a place where there's not a lot of moisture or humidity, and letting it dry out. And you can order online a product called Gimplers, and it is a rust converter. And what it does is it takes rust and it converts it into this hard black kind of shell, if you will, over the item. And I've been using it a lot on large items, like for my railroad Sherman necktie, and also for very small pieces of artillery fragment that I wasn't able to really do electrolysis on efficiently. I have hundreds of pieces of artillery fragment, and when they're tiny, it's not very efficient to do electrolysis on those things. So I've been using that rust converter for a while now. I used to use a wax treatment, but I've since quit using that and kind of moved over to Gimpler's rust converter exclusively. You can also get the rust converter at like AutoZone and different places like that will have rust converter. It doesn't have to be Gimpler's as long as it's just a rust converter. And what you want to do is apply it with a brush as thinly as you can. Put as thin a coat on as you can. Kind of think of it like spray painting. You just want to do a little bit at a time. Let that thin coat dry. And then if you need to go back in, go ahead and go in with another coat. But that's the best way I could recommend for you to do it. And that's the way I would tackle it if I had to.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I've taken, metal brush gently to it, and I had the other stuff. I have that, and that's what I was going to use. And so let me ask that question before I do it.
Yeah, that's what I would do. And it works really well as long as you don't look at it like you're painting something. That was a mistake I made kind of early on. When I started using Gimplers was I put it on and I kind of expected to see the result that I wanted immediately. So just take your time and put it on very thin to begin with. That stuff, it goes a long way. And if you put it on too thick, it sort of looks artificial. It makes the item start to look sort of plasticky in a way.
Yeah, I don't want to that because the axle, it looks really cool. It's got a lot of rivets and divots from being in the ground for so long.
Right.
And I want to keep that look.
Right. Well, just go as thin as you can then, and like I said, one coat of that should preserve the thing for the next 50 years. So, if you just put on a light coat and then in 20 years, if you think it needs another coat, then hit it again. Or if it's not looking like it is, because that a lot of times very, very rusty metal will really soak that Gimplers up. It's sort of like a piece of wood. When you put stain on it, it'll really suck it up sometimes. So you'll know where it needs a little more and a little less after that first coat.
I appreciate that because I've got a box of frags and some old tools from the lumber company where the railroad was that I need to do too. So my project's the winner.
That's right. On smaller stuff, a lot of times, like artillery shells and things like that, I do electrolysis on them. And that's kind of a whole another ball of wax, to get into. A lot of people don't want to go that far, but that's how I do kind of medium to small type items. But for little tiny pieces of frag and stuff like that, I just use Gimplers, and it works great.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Now, Barb,
we
know you're a pretty small gal. Now, be careful rolling that thing around.
Yeah.
It sounds pretty heavy.
Here's the funny is Duke Power was putting in a boat ramp right at the river. And that used to be where they dumped all the sawdust from the lumber company. And so as they're moving dirt, I'm going down in metal detecting. They're like, oh, you're not in our way, just have at it. And so I go down one night after work. I'm like, I just got to get out. And here's this axle for the railroad handcar. And I went, you're joking. They dug that up and they just left it there? So needless to say, it went in the back of my car. And a week or two later, I ran into them, and they're telling me this story, how they dug it up, and they're like, and we left it there, and it just disappeared, and they're looking at me, because they know I've got it, and I'm just looking and going, dang, that's a shame, because I'm not getting it back. And when I brought it home, I come walking around the corner, and I had company, and they're like, what are you coming home with that junk? And I'm like, this is not junk.
Yeah.
Hey, I tell you.
Well, that speaks to the importance of preserving and documenting what we find, because to a lot of people, even, I've shown people Confederate relics that to me are the best thing in the world. To them, they're like, what is that junk? They don't know what it is. They just think it's some kind of rusty, dusty-looking old piece of metal. Like, why does that matter? And I think that's why what we're doing is important. If we're doing it for the right reasons, and if we're preserving it in the right way. And I've talked to a lot of my friends about how a lot of relic hunters and metal detectors use the mantra, "Oh, I'm saving history," and I often think to myself, for who? Because, we bring all of this stuff home and we put it on our shelves, and it's largely not talked about unless a friend comes over and is like, what is that? And they're looking at your shelf of rusty junk that you've dug up, and they're like, what is this junk? And you have to tell them, oh, no, this is, you have to explain to them the significance of it. And I think that's one of the things I was hitting on earlier as to the importance of preserving and documenting what you find, so that when we are gone, the significance of these items is retained. And whether that means making decisions before we're gone as to who's going to get these items when we are gone, how that's all going to be handled, those are all things that have been weighing a lot on my mind lately as my collection grows out.
Oh, my goodness. Did we lose BirdDogg? I'll tell you what, we needed to take a break anyway, so let's run this commercial and we'll be right back. If you want to keep up with what's going on in the metal detecting world, then you need to be a subscriber to American Digger magazine. Butch and Anita Holcomb are the publishers of the magazine and have won awards for 3 straight years for being the best digger magazine on the market. American Digger magazine is available in both print and digital formats, so no matter where you live in the world, you can enjoy the latest happenings in the hobby. You can get in touch with American Digger magazine by going to americandigger.com or give them a call at 770-362-8671. And be sure and tell them that you heard it on Relics Radio. And I know everybody's asking, did I drop BirdDogg? No, I didn't. He's back on now, and we just seamlessly went through that on live radio here on Relics Radio. And by the way, guys, another plug, American Digger's South Carolina Low Country Civil War show and artifact sale will be this Saturday and Sunday, January 5th and 6th at the Omar Shrine Temple, 176 Patriot Road, Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, just across the bridge from Charleston, South Carolina. And me and Tennessee Jeff and Mark Hoover, the 2.5 Rednecks, we're going to be there live on Relics Radio right there on the show floor. And this last segment of the show, and I'll let you come back in there, BirdDogg, was about preservation and documentation. And Larry Stevens had a question earlier. Do you document all of your finds? And so I think it's a good opportunity now for you to answer that question and talk about documentation. And a little bit more on preservation is a great call by Barb. I see that she dropped off. And a great answer that you gave as well. But I'm sure you want to elaborate a little bit on that.
Well, yeah, to answer the question there, I do document my finds. Most of the time, it's hard to be religious about it on the streaks where I'm out for 7 days, 10 days in a row. But I do come home and then kind of write up a synopsis of the hunts. I have a dig log that I've used for many, many years, and in fact, that was a large part of how my YouTube channel kind of kicked off. I did a series called the Daily Dig Log, where I went through and reviewed my dig log. And it was actually an opportunity for me to remind myself of places that I had hunted when I had first started metal detecting. And that's something that is a benefit of documenting all of your hunts, is that you can go back when you're stuck trying to think of a place to go metal detecting for the day. You can go back and look at all the places you've been and see a running log of the things that you found there. And that allows you to kind of decide whether or not to go back to that spot. And another thing that it's really done for me as I've grown in experience over the last 20 years of metal detecting or so, it's given me a chance to go back to spots that I had hunted early on when I had first started metal detecting and didn't have the experience that I have now. And that's enabled me to pull hundreds of additional relics out of sites that I would have never gone back to probably if I had not documented the relics that I had found there in the first place. So I think documenting is a very important part of metal detecting, not only for yourself, but as I was talking about earlier, for the future generations who may end up with our collections. And inevitably, we're all going to leave this earth, and we're all going to leave behind a big pile of dirty metal. And people are either going to look at that as something very special or as a pile of rusty metal that has no purpose. And documenting your relics properly and sharing your passion with anybody who will listen will ensure that your relics will find a home with somebody in the future that will really appreciate them. And, for some people, that means selling their relics. There's really no shame in selling your relics. As I was talking about earlier, we're saving history, but for who? Unless we're going to put these relics in a museum, which in and of itself is a tenuous proposition, because a lot of museums don't have the resources to store or display these relics. And unless you have the means to give them a trust to ensure that these relics are going to be displayed for X amount of years or whatever the agreement is, then it may be that your relics that go to the museum are auctioned off by the museum the very next year to pay for a different exhibit that they want. So there's a lot to consider when you think about what's going to happen down the road with your relics, and documentation is kind of the first step of that whole big process.
Now, BirdDogg, how do you do your electrolysis? Do you have certain tanks and the battery charger you use? How do you go about doing that?
I do. I have a couple tanks that I use when I first come home. I say I have an artillery shell that I want to clean. The first thing I'll do, as I said earlier, is I'll usually use some pressure washing. I use the lowest power I can because you can actually damage relics with a pressure washer pretty easily, unless you're just using a very low pressure one. And then I will, again, dunk them in a Lysol treatment to try and kill any organisms that might be on there, any kind of weird funk that might be on there from the river. And then I have an electrolysis tank set up with a manual charger If you get an automatic battery charger, it will cut itself off. It thinks it's shorting itself out during the electrolysis process. So a manual battery charger, and then tanks, and you have to set it up with anodes. And electrolysis is kind of a very deep process to try and explain over the radio. But the essence is you're taking your relic, and you're taking a sacrificial piece of metal, and you're running a charge between the two, and all of the rust and corrosion on your relic is going to be drawn from your relic to the anode, your sacrificial piece of metal. And there's a lot of videos online. I've done several videos online as to the specifics as to how to set up a electrolysis tank, but that's kind of the fundamentals of how it works.
Now, what are you running? What do you put in your water to make it more conductive?
I use washing powder, and it's an Arm & Hammer washing powder. I don't have the box in front of me. It's in a yellow box, I believe, though. And it's sodium bicarbonate is essentially what it is. And that accelerates the process somewhat. And again, that's kind of covered in a lot of those videos. But electrolysis also, I will say, electrolysis is kind of a decision you have to make with care whether or not to do electrolysis to an item. Because I have completely destroyed relics doing electrolysis. And if it goes too long or too far, or if you use too high of a voltage or amperage, you can thoroughly destroy a relic quickly. And I've experimented with electrolysis not only on iron items, but also on things like buttons and coins as well. I've actually done videos on my channel on those experiments, kind of documenting how they went. And I actually tried to do reverse electrolysis, which is basically electroplating. I tried to electroplate some buttons that I had found where all of the silver wash had been corroded off of the button. I tried to put it back on the button with reverse electrolysis. And that was kind of an interesting experiment.
Oh, it sounds
some
like
weird science when you get into electrolysis. And like I said, I highly recommend anyone who wants to try electrolysis to research it very thoroughly first, because there's nothing worse than pulling your cannonball out of the water and it crumbling apart in your hands.
Oh,
so don't do that.
I had a
friend.
Take
my word.
I had a friend one time that did a bayonet, and it actually, the center of it just disintegrated. I mean, it came out in two pieces, and he left it in there too long. And so you're right. I mean, it's something that needs to be done with moderation and keep a close eye on it, and don't overdo it. And a lot of times,
and there's a lot of items that I'll make the decision that no, I'm not going to do electrolysis on that item, and that's where things like rust converter come into play. Because if the item is just too delicate, any amount of electrolysis could cause irreversible harm. And there are other methods, which I'm actually in the process right now of working on another method of using vinegar. And that's a method that's been used for, probably 100 years now to remove rust from items, is to soak them in vinegar. And I've got a Folgers coffee can sitting here. It's one of the plastic type Folgers things that they have now. But it's full of vinegar, has the lid on it, and it's full of artillery frags. And they've been in there about a month now. And it's slowly but surely doing the job, and it's a lot more gentle than electrolysis. So that's another option that people might consider if they've got a very delicate item. Like I found lock plates that I thought would surely disintegrate if I put them into electrolysis, and little gun tools and things like that just probably wouldn't stand up to electrolysis very well. So I might take an item like that, soak it in vinegar for a month, pull it out, neutralize it with baking soda and water mixture to help neutralize any of the salts that were produced or on the piece, and then use something like Gimpler's rust converter to preserve the piece. And that's a much gentler method, in a lot of instances.
Yeah, a lot of times I've used vinegar a lot, and then actually I've got a try I'm soaking in vinegar right now to get a lot more of the corrosion off of it. And then I have done electrolysis on a half cent. Of course, you couldn't tell what it was, and I had to do it, and luckily it turned out perfect. I mean, I had it on there from 8 to 10 minutes, and then, of course, I was right there with it. And then I'd pull it out, check it, and then I'd put it back in. And then, I mean, you have to stay with it. If you're doing a coin a button, you have to stay with it.
Absolutely. If you walk out of the room, you'll come back to a very, very ugly, orange-looking button. It'll look like Tennessee orange, by gosh. That's not what you want to do.
No, especially if you're from Kentucky. You don't want to see that Tennessee
you're a UK fan. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a button I'll bring you, Seven.
Is it orange?
Yeah.
It turned orange. Well, yeah. It was pretty rough.
You may have left it in there too long then. And somebody asked in the chat there a while ago, are we talking minutes or hours? It depends on the relic that you're doing electrolysis on. It really does. And it depends on your power source. I use a cell phone charger for some of mine in just a small tank for small stuff. And I've put some stuff in there that I've run up to a week, and it's just a really, really slow process of taking it off. But you don't run the danger of doing too much too quick. And when you talk about electrolysis,
and I've even used a 9-volt battery before with alligator clips to do it on coins and buttons and things like that. So the less power, the better.
Yeah, and if you're talking coins or relics, less is more. I mean, there's no doubt about that, because you
absolutely.
That's a process that, you're talking minutes there. I put Barb, I hope you're not listening now, but I ate up an Indian head penny one time trying to get the corrosion off of it, left it in there for about an hour, and I came back, and it looked like a stinking Lincoln that had been in the ground for 2 or 3 years,
It's indistinguishable. Can't tell anything. It'll take everything off of the coin.
Yeah.
And I'm the same way with buttons. I honestly, for me, if I found a Civil War button, there's not a chance in a million years I would run electrolysis on it. That's just me. And, I have the luxury of having gone to the button mine and having thousands of buttons here at the house to kind of experiment on that are civilian type buttons, that are, buttons I don't mind to destroy, seeing what might happen. But for me, as you said a minute ago, less is more with a Civil War relic. I don't mind to leave dirt on the face of it, because I think dirt oftentimes brings out the detail. And I know for me, I've taken a lot of buttons before and ran straight into the sink and ran water on them, and they looked great. I could see the detail, and I pulled them out from the water and dried them off, and all the dirt was gone and the detail was gone. So for me, less is more. And, I don't, with buttons, a lot of people like to dip them in olive oil. And I've ruined the detail on so many buttons doing that I don't like to do that. I'm very much a proponent of as little as you have to do to be able to identify that piece, and then leave it as it is. It kind of gives it its provenance. If you can't clean a piece too much, you're kind of washing away its history. That button or that coin came a long way to get into your possession, and it's, in my mind, that's a big part of it. Is how it got to you.
Yeah,
you stumbled around in some field for 8 or 10 hours and pulled something out of the ground. Amazing. So, it's a part of its history.
And, you spend all that time trying to find it. Don't kill it. Don't ruin it,
Don't destroy it.
Right.
Yeah.
Because...
And nothing more heartbreaking.
Yeah, it is.
especially on a large set. I mean, if anything you could just dry brush, just take a dry toothbrush and brush that dirt off, you'll see a lot more detail on that coin or button than you would if you put it underwater. As soon as you put it underwater, I mean, pretty much all the detail is gone.
Well, and we as relic hunters, you know this as well as anybody, but probably the best trait of any metal detectorist is patience. And if you don't have, you spend all that patience walking around finding nothing, and you finally find something amazing, and you lose that sense of patience. It's easy to lose that sense of patience and want to see immediately, like, what is this? And I think you're right, like going home and taking your sweet time and doing as little as possible, dry brushing, maybe a little toothpick in here and there. And, but you can never go back. If you go too far on a relic, you can never go back. And you can always sit there and pick at it a little more with a toothpick, but if you've wrecked the thing, it's over.
That's right. That reminds me of a story. I'd run into some Native American arrowheads one time, and of course they were stuck on this board. And of course, a buddy of mine that I worked with, coworker, he was like, "Man," he said, "I never liked sticking them to the board like that." And of course, we pulled one off, and of course, it had a little bit of, I guess, Elmer's glue. And sure enough, it left a little spot. And then I was like, "Well, how'd I get that off?" He said, "Buried in the ground for another 500 years." And then
I don't even know if that would take it off.
It probably wouldn't.
Hey, talking about documentation and everything on your finds, I guess that do you GPS mark a lot of your stuff, or just the sites or what have you?
I don't. And, it's just kind of a matter of convenience. And it's something that I honestly, and I know that it's headed that direction, and there's probably already machines out there that'll do it for you, and apps and everything else. But I think if machines integrated it into their system, where you could come home and download a file and maybe like push a button to mark in the field. But I don't know that technology has caught up to be precise enough to really, I don't know, to kind of satiate my impatience in the field. When I'm in a field or I'm in the water, I'm typically very focused on trying to maximize my time there. And I think a lot of people who watch my videos or who have never met me, who go out and hunt with me for the first time, are kind of surprised by how quickly I'll move around an area and how focused I am on certain things. And if it's not part of that focus, then I'm not bothering with it right then,
Yeah.
And I think that speaks a lot to why I've had success with certain items is that sole focus on certain things.
Talking about machines that do that, the MindLab CTX has that feature in it. And on one of the Civil War camps that I hunt here, I actually did that on every relic that I found. And then at the end of the day, you come in and you pull it down, download that off of the detector into your computer, and then move it over to Google Earth, and it shows you a dot, and you could give it a number, and you saw exactly where every relic was. And as you begin to find relics, you begin to develop patterns. And you'd say, well, I found relics in a line from here to here, so I need to continue that line, east, west, north, or south. And I was very productive by doing that. Of course, it does take a little extra time. And I know if you don't have that feature on a metal detector, then you're going to have to use a smartphone or something else, and it becomes a lot more work. But there is some benefit to doing it.
And I could see that for sure. I think if more machines would integrate it in that fashion, it would get used more. Although I'm still pretty good about remembering where every relic, I think I could pretty much put you within 5 feet of every relic I've ever dug, even just looking at it from the shelf. But I think the more that they improve that technology, the more it'll become useful to relic hunters for sure.
And for posterity, because I'm like you, I remember, especially the really good relics that I've found, I remember almost exactly the spot. I can walk you within 4 or 5 feet. But after I'm gone, nobody will know where that relic came from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gone. And I've actually been working on building a program around that idea, and I've been working with some friends on it, and it's a program that we're trying to develop wherein the user can download the program and they can input information about their finds, pictures, GPS information, what the find is, and it's an ongoing log that they can keep running. And when they're ready, they will be able to upload this to a server, and it can have a time release stamp on it to where you can choose the date that information becomes public information. And right now we're trying to figure out the database for it. But my hope is to be able to set up an online hosting program that can host all this information, store it, and then release it to a public database at a date of the relic hunter's choosing. And so I could say, upload my data file with all of my finds in it and say that I want it released in 30 years from now. And then release that information on a set date, X amount of years down the road. And that would protect you as a relic hunter, because relic hunters know we're pretty secretive about where we're going for good reason. And that would protect your locations and protect the property owners who may not want everybody in the world to know that, Civil War relics are getting dug in their yard.
Right.
But so we're trying to kind of work through the logistics of something like that. But I think that it would be great if there was a system like that. And England kind of has a system in place to deal with that very situation. If you find things that may be of significant value, you send it into the government and they document it and assess if it's really a significant find. And if it's not, they send it back to you. And if it is, then they keep it and they pay you out for it.
Yeah, it's a great system that they have over there. There's no doubt. Hey, guys, we've got one last caller in. I know we're at the bottom of the hour, but we've got Butch Holcomb in. What's going on tonight, Butch?
Hey, guys, what's happening?
How's it going, Butch?
Hey, Butch.
Not much.
I just wolfed down my delicious pizza, and I'm ready now.
Are you ready now?
Right, a little bit late. I apologize for running late.
That's okay. We were kind of hoping that you would call in tonight. We're talking to BirdDogg as our guest tonight.
Hey, BirdDogg. Yeah.
Hey, Butch. How you been?
I'm doing good.
We wanted to give you just a minute to plug the show that we're going to tear everything down tonight after this show, and head your way for the show there Saturday and Sunday. So go ahead and tell everybody a little bit about the South Carolina show.
You're going to be in the right place. We're already here, and in fact, we set up the tables this afternoon, so we'll be ready for the dealers to come in tomorrow and get set up, and it'll be Saturday and Sunday, of course, for the general public. But that's the American Diggers 2019 South Carolina Low Country Civil War Show and Sale. And this is the 25th year of the show, although we've only had it about 4 years. And, guys, I tell you what, this is the biggest year we've had yet. We've got right at 200 tables already sold. Probably 180 dealers and displayers are going to be here. And it's going to be something else. It's at the Omar Shrine Temple, Patriots Point. That's 176 Patriots Point, Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. And you can't miss it. In fact, if you're staying at the Quality Inn, or if you know where the Quality Inn is, it's right across the parking lot. So you're going to like that, Lloyd.
Yeah, that's where we're staying at. We booked our rooms today there at the Quality Inn. And like I said, we're gonna have a live podcast from there on Saturday. I guess you've got us a spot already set up there.
We got you a spot right in the middle of the show hall up on the stage.
Oh.
So I know that's a place you're comfortable with, being on the stage, so we've got you right up there dead center.
Yeah, I'm comfortable on stage.
I can't wait.
I can't either. It's going to be a great show. And,
yeah, if I could get Loy to fly, we'd be there a lot quicker. But he won't fly, so we're going to have to. It's going to take us 8.5 hours. But we'll get there.
Give him 2 or 3 Starbucks with espresso, and he'll fly.
I bet he will.
You might not want to ride with him, but he'll fly.
I tell you what, there ain't no airplane can haul all this junk I'm going to have to bring. You know that. I mean, it takes flatbed.
That's our problem.
Yeah.
Yes. And Loy, for those that have never seen Loy in action, he actually had everything set up at the Chattanooga show. Man, you bring the whole studio with you. I mean, you got everything there.
And anything for American Digger Radio Network, we're ready to do it.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. I would say we're not worthy, but we are worthy.
And
you bring so much to this hobby, you and Jeff, and
yeah, we really do enjoy it. And by the way, Butch, just run by the counter there at Quality Inn and pick up our rooms, and that'll be all right with us.
Yeah, that'll be great.
I'm going to actually wrap you up some pizza and leave it at the front desk.
Oh, okay.
It may be cold by tomorrow night, but it's pretty good, and it hadn't been picked over too much. Maybe the pepperonis, but the anchovies still good.
Okay.
Well, I guess we'll take what we get.
Take what you get. That's right. Are you coming, Jeff?
Yes, sir. I'll be there. I can't wait.
Heck yeah, I can't wait for this.
Yeah, it's
talk to Heath Jones. Heath, I think, is going to try to be there too, and if so, who knows? We may have a repeat of the Fat Man Can Dance video that we had at Chattanooga.
Oh yeah, and Little Dirt Digger and
had an earthquake.
Yeah, we had an earthquake when hey BirdDogg,
had an earthquake
they set into dancing to the intro music on one of the shows, and somebody filmed it, and then it wasn't but just a little bit. I think it was like a 4.7 on the Richter scale.
That's right, exactly.
They thought that Chattanooga was
fixed. Make that up.
No, and
now they are having earthquakes out that way, so we better be careful with not to help it out a little bit.
Well, at least we're not.
You guys have never been to this show, have you?
No, no, never been.
It is. It's funny. Each show we do a lot of shows. Just attend to them in addition to putting these two on. Each show seems to have its own different personality. It kind of picks up the vibe from the area. So this one down here in Charleston, it is one of the laid-back, friendly atmosphere type shows, and you're going to be seeing things from the low country of South Carolina. A lot of people walk in with artifacts, and oh my gosh, it's just unbelievable. The year before last, we actually had a fellow walk in with a big fruit jar, and I'm talking about the big size, the big apple pie deluxe size, but I mean it was a big old fruit jar. And full of infield L1 base bullets with wood plugs still in them.
Oh, me!
And before he left there, every one of them had been bought, and he was selling them fairly cheap. He had gotten into a bunch of them.
Well, we're looking forward to being there, and we're bringing Mark Hoover with us too. Our half redneck.
Oh, great! I'm glad.
Yeah,
I'm glad.
And his
wife.
That
is excellent.
His wife Gail. But we're at the bottom of our show here now tonight, Butch, and Lord willing, we will see you tomorrow afternoon there in Mount Pleasant.
I appreciate you guys doing it, and BirdDogg, sorry to eat up any of your time there, but
oh yeah,
it's going to be a great show.
Everybody get out there. They're good shows.
It is going to be good.
Chattanooga. Yeah.
And I've actually got a radio interview tomorrow morning, Loy, so I won't know how to act. I'm talking about a real radio station, so, I'm going to see if they'll let me play with the buttons and stuff.
Man, you're big time now, Butch. A real radio station.
I tell you, man, watch for me on the radio.
Okay. Well,
All right.
Me and you.
Come on down, guys. Everybody come.
All right. Thanks for joining us here tonight, and we'll see you.
Take care, Butch.
See you tomorrow.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
BirdDogg, before we get off, let everybody know how they can get a hold of your YouTube channel, Facebook, any of those type things.
Yeah, if you go over there and just search BirdDogg Metal Detecting, you'll probably find me pretty easy. It ought to come up. There's about 400 videos up there now, and I'm in the process of actually editing one right now, so there'll be some more coming soon. I've got about a year's worth of footage saved up here that I'm in the process of editing up. So
yeah.
But yeah, and you can find me on Facebook too. I got a page for BirdDogg Metal Detecting there as well. And always glad to be able to share a little bit of my adventures with everyone else. So come on over if you haven't seen it before.
And we did have one question that we didn't get to. How did you get the name BirdDogg, and why do you spell it with 2 G's?
Well, I got the name from my dad and our good buddy Bob Milburn. They used to take me out metal detecting, and it seemed like we'd get out of the car, and I'd walk straight to a relic within the first minute or two and be able to kind of point the direction as to where they were going. So they started calling me their BirdDogg, saying I was pointing to the relics. And I spell it with 2 G's, I guess, from my influence in the 90s, was listening to too much Snoop Doggy Dogg, I guess. I don't know. It just seemed to make sense. And BirdDogg with 1 G was already taken. So
okay,
there you have it.
Oh, that's the inside story right there. Well, we certainly do appreciate you being on with us again. Like I say, he was on with us November the 16th, Season 1, Episode 2, back in 2017, and still one of our top 10 shows, and I'm sure that this one will be too. You're always a wealth of information. Love to talk to you. Can't wait to get back and hunt with you and Jim, your dad, sometime.
Yeah, man. You boys come on down anytime. You're welcome anytime.
Well,
sounds like a plan.
We'll take you up on that. Jeff, you got any
Sounds good, boys.
You got any parting comments?
Well, just I want to thank everybody in the chat. We couldn't do this show without you, and we do this show for you. And then thanks, BirdDogg, for the being our guest, and then thanks for everybody that called in. And of course, we've got to give a shirt away. Who was it? Won that?
Yeah, Greg won that shirt. Hey, Greg.
Yep, Greg. Yep.
Reach out to us on our Facebook group page, Relics Radio Facebook group page. Send us a message with your size and your address, and we will contact detecttees.com, and they will send you out a Relics Radio T-shirt. Or you can just email it to digginwith7, that's not with a G, just I-N, digginwith7@gmail.com, and we'll get that message as well. And we appreciate the new caller and appreciate the show, appreciate everybody being here, and thank you so much, BirdDogg, for being with us tonight.
Hey, thank you, fellas. Be safe on the way to South Carolina tomorrow now.
Okay.
Right. Thank you, Bert. Thank you, Chris.
And
Take care.
Yep. As I close out the show here, if you like podcasts that talk about metal detecting, be sure and catch Beyond Sight and Sound with Josh Kimball. He's on every Sunday night and Wednesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern. All Metal Mode is on at Monday night at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. And by the way, this next Monday, I'm going to be a guest on there with Gypsy. And then on Monday night as well, American Digger Relic Roundup is on at 9 o'clock Eastern. History Seekers is on Tuesday night at 9 o'clock Eastern. That's with Heath and Scott. And then Hardcore Metal Detecting has a podcast every Thursday and Saturday night at 8 o'clock Eastern. And XP Team USA has a podcast at 8 o'clock every other Friday. So catch those shows, but be sure and catch us next Thursday. Be sure and catch us this Saturday, too, at the South Carolina show. Probably going to be around 12 o'clock noon Eastern Time. We'll see you then. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on Relics Radio. We really do appreciate it. Be sure and join us live each Thursday night at 7 o'clock Central Time, 8 o'clock Eastern here on Spreaker. Or you can catch the archive show at Relics Radio on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, or iTunes. Please take a minute and hit the like button and be sure and follow us so that you'll get notifications of all of our upcoming broadcasts. You can also find us on YouTube at Digging with Seven or Tennessee Jeff, or you can check us out on our Relics Radio Facebook page. If you'd like to get in touch with us, then send an email to diggingwith7@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. We hope you'll join us next Thursday night, and until then, get out there and dig some history.
Yeah.